work, one whole day to play. Come on, everybody, wear your roller skates today. It's Saturday, 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 it's Saturday, Saturday, it's Saturday, Saturday, it's Saturday, yeah.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Career Exploration Saturday. I'm your host, Ebony Tyler. I have real conversations with real people about real jobs. Woo! We are 9 days into 2021, and Georgia came through for us. But then hours later, we witnessed an attempted coup on America. So, this week's conversation with Civics superhero Gary Sheng is right on time. And although our conversation was taped before the election, Gary dropped some jewels about young people and their civic engagement and telling your own narrative as it relates to your personal growth. All right, let's jump right in. Hi, Gary. Welcome.
Hey, Ebony.
Welcome to Career Exploration Saturday. I'm so glad to have you here with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. So I start all the conversations, tell us about your 16-year-old self. Did you know what you wanted to be? Did you have it all together?
Definitely didn't have it all together. 16-year-old self. I was at Illinois Mathematics and Science Academy in Illinois, in like cornfield area in Illinois. It was a school that was founded as what I like to call it was a Cold War academy. So it was one of the schools that was built to beat Russia in the space race. And so it's very techy, very, very sciencey. Cold War has long been over, so the vibe was a little different than probably when it was founded like decades ago, but very geeky. And that was great because I was definitely still a geek, but was definitely one back then. I think I definitely did not know what I wanted to do in the future when I was 16. What I was good at was playing. I think it's funny looking back because I think my greatest sign of leadership potential was playing video games and rallying like a big percentage of the high school population to play this video game called Dota, which means Defense of the Ancients, which was just this like battle game, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think what I learned there was that if I'm really passionate about something, I'm very good at creating like entire communities that form around that passion. And I think you can see the continuity with Civics Unplugged.
Yeah. And I can't wait to get to that. But, I looked at your LinkedIn page and you talked about, leadership and building products that make people's lives better. And, even when you were at Duke on your LinkedIn page, it talked about your leadership. So how did you know that at a young age, how did you know that you were a leader and that you were someone who can cultivate people and get people to follow you or to take direction from you on an issue that you were trying to build?
I don't know. So I think, I joke about the video game stuff being a kind of sign that I had leadership potential, but I didn't realize that until much later. And I don't know if I saw that much in myself until kind of later on when I was actually able to think more deeply about the definition of leadership. Sure, like I was kind of the head of a bunch of different clubs in high school. I think a lot of kids that are like high achieving are like president of this club or this club. Mm-hmm. I was involved in some clubs in college as well. Mm-hmm. But I realized at least the definition of leadership that I most identify with, which relates to creating almost like ecosystems where people are able to fully express themselves and realize their potential. Because I think there's a definition of leadership which is more, and I don't think that people mean it or even think that deeply when they think of the definition of leader, but there's almost like this implicit understanding of leader. I think we can look at how a lot of our presidential candidates lead, which is like, I know better, right? You almost want to be like a mini me of the leader, right? And you just like blindly follow whatever the leader says. And what I've learned is, it's both a lot more fulfilling and a lot less stressful if your role is more just to get really great people that should be a lot better than you in different ways together, so they can all be great together and kind of synergize, right? So like different people can be good at different things together. It's like 1 + 1 = 4, instead of just like a bunch of people that are waiting to take orders from you, if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense. That makes total sense, because then it allows you to move the work a little bit more forward and
For sure.
faster and a little bit more equitable. So can you tell us a little bit about your time at Duke? What did you study?
So I studied. I didn't know what I wanted to study in freshman year, and I was lucky to have, and I really feel lucky because Duke just started this sort of entrepreneurship program, like summer program, where I just applied kind of randomly. I didn't think I would get it. I got it. I was able to intern at some startup in Silicon Valley, and the wonderful host, who was the CTO of the startup, which is called Pocket, and he was just like, what do you have to lose? Just try out Computer Science 101. And so I liked it a lot. And I think one thing to note, so I ended up getting a computer science degree and, ended up at Google. But I think one thing to note is that I felt like so behind compared to other people in my, at Duke. And I, just because like, especially today, there's never been more ability to start early, like software engineering. Like there's a lot of free like YouTube videos and online courses, and a lot of schools have computer science courses. And so I was like, it's weird to think back at how hesitant I was to even try out computer science. But I guess I just want to say that it's the best time to have started something that you at least want to try out is yesterday. The next best is today, right?
Right.
And I guess one of the best things, well, I was lucky to have had mentors that were just like, go for it. And they would like really just give me pep talks. Like, it's not even like that they would like give me like prep quizzes and stuff like that. They just like give me spirit. They're just like, you can do this. Right. And I think it was through those interactions, just those relationships of just support, that I realized just how important good energy is, and people that like really they don't see you necessarily for what you are at that moment, but they're like, you have such a bright future. So it's like, it's weird to think that I had, I guess, so little confidence in myself, even as a sophomore in college. But I think, one thing I want to say is that everyone is dealing with confidence issues. I'm still dealing with it today. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing that is it should be almost relieving for anyone to hear that everyone sort of feels like an imposter.
Yeah. Every day I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And then I have to recenter and say, okay, well, I'm doing it because I believe in this work, right?
For sure. For sure.
So internships and mentorship, that's really the core of what Liberated Success is, right? We want to make sure that students are connected with good folks in the various occupations or interest areas. So can you tell us a little bit about the different internships you had? Because I see you interned at Google, Flipboard, Pocket, all in technology. And what exactly is
a technology internship like for young people who may be thinking that that's where they want to go?
Yeah, so I think my trajectory was lucky because it was like kind of stepwise. My first internship at Pocket, it was at a tech company, but they didn't make me do stuff I wasn't able to do. Like I didn't know how to code, so they just knew I was willing to do work, and they just gave me stuff that didn't require me to code, like just some basic data stuff and a little bit of product design stuff. And I'm realizing the most important thing that that internship provided was just the sense that I'm not just a fraud that somehow managed to get in.
Yeah.
And just being around people that are in a position that you could potentially see yourselves, or maybe you didn't see yourselves, maybe you didn't see that it was a possibility until you're like, oh, these people are just humans. These people are just regular people.
Right.
They're not like, it's not just abstract. Like there was a very clear path that they took to developing skills over time. There's no magic. So that was really helpful. And again, like my intern host, who was just like, hey, like really like your attitude, probably worth giving it a shot to try out a computer science course. So, and then just in terms of other internships, kind of gradually as my skills developed, I was able to apply to new sorts of internships. Again, like with the kind of moral support of mentors that like encouraged me to keep going, because I don't know, I don't know. Again, like the imposter syndrome really never goes fully away. It kind of dials down a little bit over time. But yeah, you want to celebrate the kind of incremental wins, right? Like, okay, you have internship here that is of a particular difficulty, right? And then like if you do well, maybe ask for a recommendation for something else, right? And study hard and develop new skills that allow you to get to another internship. I still feel very lucky that I was able to get a internship at Google. I studied really hard for that interview. And then I worked really hard during that internship to impress people so that they would want to hire me full time.
And you were hired by them full time.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you share what you did there?
Yeah. So I was assigned to a pretty cool team called Google Cloud. And basically they build Google Cloud makes it like easy for people to basically borrow the infrastructure, like the internet infrastructure of Google, to like run your own applications, right? So Snapchat, right, it doesn't actually own like the computers, that the servers that are needed to power the app, right? Because it has like millions and millions of users, but Google is actually hosting the data and like the power that is required to allow millions of people to be using their apps at any time.
Right.
So the cloud has really supercharged innovation, the economy. I worked on this one sub product called Cloud SQL for a few years. I learned a lot about myself, how I kind of compared to other people. I learned that there was definitely a lot of benefits of working at a giant company that had free food, but I also, something else I learned was I really valued my freedom and being able to set my hours. And you'll notice that not just because it's raining, like I'm working from home today, and I really like that having that freedom. And look, yes, Google is not making their employees right now go to the office, but pandemic aside, like as a co-founder of Civics Unplugged, and we just kind of set expectations, me and my co-founders set expectations with each other. It's just like wherever you're most able to kind of be productive and contribute, just that's how you should work.
Mm. Well, I'm so glad that you fast forward to Civics Unplugged, because it is an amazing organization and you guys are doing some great work. So can you tell us a little bit about how you came to be a co-founder of Civics Unplugged?
Yeah, so while I was at Google, it didn't happen overnight. I was just kind of slowly coming to realization just how, well, let me rewind. When I was in college, this was between 2011 and 2015. And it's interesting how like a whole generation can kind of have similar sort of thought processes. I think like, I distinctly remember even just like when I had any sparse political conversations in college, it was just like, oh, Obama, cool, we have a black president. That must mean that we never have to, there's no more issues anymore. Like we're actually so ignorant. And I think I was very privileged, and I actually didn't know that there was that much inequality until I took a class on inequality my second semester senior year.
Okay.
I grew up in a pretty like upper middle class suburb in Illinois, and of course I knew that there was some poverty in America, but I just didn't know like how polarized our like economic system is.
Right.
And that was just kind of the starting point of my kind of civic intelligence, I guess, just becoming more wise as a citizen. And again, it didn't happen overnight, but between 2016 and 2019, I just gradually kind of realized just how fragile our democracy is, how probably preaching to the choir here, but our education system has a lot of ways that could be a lot better. Again, there's tons of inequality. Our climate is quickly degrading, which is like literally like the way that we are able to breathe, right? And the way that we're able to survive is through our ecology, which is it's no one person's fault, but it's kind of everyone's responsibility to figure out, at least in the next decade, how we're going to prevent ourselves from just having persistent forest fires and like mass displacement because of rising sea levels and flooding and all of that. Democracy was something that kept coming up as what I thought was super underrated as a crisis, because we like, thank God for the kids marching for gun violence and climate, but we actually can't address any issues like that require government action, like mobilizing tons of money, unless our political system works.
Right.
So I could care about climate, I could care about gun violence, but if our political system is not responsive to the people, and actually, and so much so that people just kind of check out, and I don't like it when people disparage young people for not wanting to vote, because the system is not responsive, right? And like the two choices in front of us, I have a preference on who I'd like to win, but they're so far from the ideal, right, that like it's almost like a mass gaslighting, that people are like just shaming people for not being excited right, about our democracy. And then one of the things that I realized was that everyone that is not someone that's already in their career is in their career right now. So like they can't make it their full-time job, or very much even like there needs to be volunteers to preserve and strengthen our democracy, but we need people that like almost like make it their full-time careers to be defenders, right, and builders of the future of our democracy. So I was thinking like, okay, what are we doing to empower young people? And turns out we were doing very, very little. In fact, when we do try to like teach civic education, it's teaching this sort of idealized version of what our political system is. It's like almost like, hey, if you write a letter to your representative, they're going to respond and be like, oh yes, I'm going to pass this policy because you wrote me a letter. Right. It's like that's clearly not how that works. Which again is why like this contributes to why people like check out of school, because they're like, this is actually just telling me a lie, right? And also why like people don't really participate in our democracy, again, for very good reason. So I was lucky to have met my eventual co-founders in early 2019, and they gave me the courage to leave Google by May of 2019, and it's been about a year and a half. It's been a really amazing year and a half. We have a community of almost 200 kids that have high schoolers that have across like 40 states that really have changed my life. I had this impression that young people were underestimated, but just how much they have taught me and how much I've grown as a person because of being kind of around them, right? And just being able to have the privilege to support them and they support me, right? Like to have that experience so far has been the best, so I'll say.
So the goal of Civics Unplugged is to teach young people civic engagement. Is that the easy version?
Yeah, I mean, it's to equip young people with everything that they need to build a better future for our democracy. And I'm kind of just remixing our mission, but like the everything part is, it's intentional. I'm saying it intentionally because it's not enough to just give them like facts that they like absorb, or like one skill or another, or like a few peers that are going to help them talk through ideas. It's like there's like you need funding as well to just, let's say instead of a great example is one of our kids was working at Starbucks before, and that wasn't very fulfilling for her. Yeah. And now we're able to give her a small stipend, right, to work with us. And it also, and there's big open questions for how we can provide the rest of the everything. There's a big question mark of all that there is. But one of the issues is that, can a kid actually spend a lot of time becoming like a civic superhero, as we like to call it, if the parents or the friends don't understand how important that sort of development is? Right. It's really hard. So we don't have an answer for how to kind of unlock every single part of this, I guess, equation for civic empowerment and then eventually systems change. But we're working on it.
Well, one thing I like about Civics Unplugged, so full disclosure, folks, I was a guide this year with Civics Unplugged for one of their Juntos. And one of the things that was really impactful for me was that one of the young people said that you guys sent her a computer so that she could participate in this fellowship. And I was like, wow, because one, Civics Unplugged didn't miss a beat in the pandemic. Like programming just kept flowing, which was amazing. And then you made it accessible for students who wanted to participate, but maybe didn't have the technology to participate. And you sent it to her. And I just thought that was so, Civics Unplugged changed this young lady's life.
even though it was just sending a computer, but it was super impactful for her. And it made me all warm and fuzzy too, to be, you know, to be part of it. So I just think that it's great work to have all of these kids from across the country who have different, they grow up differently. They have different backgrounds, different, political, feelings.
Yeah.
To all be in a group together to discuss ideas is wonderful.
Really appreciate that, Ebony. And, you know, that was beautiful what you just said. I think as much as it's helpful to get a laptop, it's also almost just as helpful to know that you're almost getting like a sense of unconditional love from someone you barely know.
Right.
And I think we live in such what I like to call it an atomistic society. Like we treat ourselves as like individual separate atoms when like it's actually the interrelations that make us special as people.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're okay as like separate from other people, but like as soon as, I'll just speak for myself, as soon as I started to identify as someone that is dependent on and strengthens other people, like I feel so much more whole, as more realized as a person. So much of what we want to do, at least, and get better at is helping kids unplug from a lot of the mindsets that have really dominated the thinking of a lot of leaders that have created the systems that are creating so many problems.
Yeah. So, I mean, how would you even describe your occupation? Are you are you a civic superhero? Are you a technology person? Not that I want to put you in a box, Gary, but like, how would you describe the work that you do?
So my official title is COO, Chief Operating Officer. Definitely do some tech stuff. I guess I make it part of my job to just make sure that really, and this almost seems like a cop-out answer, but it's like I do whatever it takes to allow these kids to feel like they're supported and able to continue connecting with themselves and others in the community, that and just continue to be updated on and have access to whatever we're trying to provide. And because we can always do a better job at this, and because it's not kind of isolated to just technology or just a newsletter or just mentorship, I just find myself, I guess, in practice asking a lot of questions about, of the kids. What can we do better? How are you feeling, really? First of all, it's like almost, how are you feeling and what are you struggling with? And what I have found myself doing more and more, I think this is me maturing as a leader, is just really figuring out what they're actually dealing with, instead of just trying to design things like from above or whatever. And what I like seeing is like patterns of what people are dealing with. So then once we have that data about what they're going through and what they need, then we can evolve our curriculum and provide learning experiences and support experiences that actually comport to what they're dealing with in their real lives. So I think the default kind of way of going about things is to kind of talk about kids, and then trying things out and often it not landing. and it actually takes more time and effort and resources when you could have just done it with the kids.
Yeah.
And if it still goes badly, everyone kind of can laugh about it and like can share in like and then the responsibility of making it better the next time, which has been a really cool experience because I just find myself, I guess, having to do less and less because the kids, well, I end up doing different things because the kids take on so much of what I did before.
Yeah.
Because they want to be stewards of the community. They want to like help other people get whatever they find magical, in the community.
The kids are phenomenal. I mean, they are so smart. It's okay. So when we were talking offline, I had mentioned to you that I like your LinkedIn, and I want you to tell everybody like what you told me. What Gary's LinkedIn is, when you look at it, he's talking to you. So can you just tell us why you use that format as opposed to like the resume format? And just so you know, I'm totally redoing my LinkedIn now.
Well, I think, I mean, definitely, I'll definitely explain the LinkedIn. But just to kind of take a step back, what I think is important for everyone to do, or to start trying to make it a habit, is just ask what the objective that they're trying to achieve is, and then start designing the thing to achieve those objectives.
Okay.
So it's one thing to just kind of browse. It's one thing to, I think the default and like low effort thing to do is just, hey Bob, how are you going about this? And like not even asking why Bob is doing that, just like, hey, I just kind of want to do what everyone else is doing. And when it came to LinkedIn, I was just thinking, okay, what am I trying to achieve? When someone goes to my profile, what kind of feeling do I want them to have? What kind of adjectives do I want them to describe me as? Do I want them to message me? Do I want them to try to collaborate with me? Do I want them to add me? Do I want them to read my posts? So, and I don't know I forget what at the top of my head what exactly is all the words that are on my LinkedIn, but some of the principles that I've applied are just like make it very to kind of quote you, is speak directly to the reader, and make it just seem like I'm talking to you. And for every single experience, I want to show a few things. I want to show that I grew a lot, what skills, and in particular, what skills I developed and was able to use, what I accomplished. And I also wanted to show like a continuity across experiences. So, like from like Illinois Mathematics and Science Academy, my high school, I kind of tried out a bunch of things, kind of grew a little bit as a leader and creative person, went to Duke, tried a bunch of things, developed some skills in software engineering. And then at Google, I developed as like a more manager type person, and ultimately realized that what my ultimate, at least calling for now, is doing whatever I can to leverage almost all of my experiences to support young people in whatever way I can. And before we started recording, you asked me how I'm doing, and it took me a while to respond because there's just so much that is going on in the world, and thus there's so much on my mind, but relatedly, there's so much on kids' minds. And like, I guess something that I don't have the answer to is, how does Civics Unplugged continually adapt to what's on kids' minds and like what they're facing? So it doesn't feel like we're saying, if you're not like a activist for ranked choice voting, you're a bad person. And obviously we've never said that, but we don't even want to imply that.
Right.
It's like if most civic minded Gen Z kids are like really just focused on how to not disappoint their parents, or like how to even talk to their parents about what they want to do, we should probably provide resources for that. I'm just making up an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, that was a tangent from LinkedIn, but I guess just to close the loop, you have an opportunity with LinkedIn or any personal website you create to tell a cohesive story that shows evolution. And I think in this time of unprecedented change, where the world is changing, what skills the world is demanding of people is changing, there's almost no better like meta skill than showing that you are constantly evolving, right? Constantly developing new skills, constantly opening your mind. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Cool.
So final question, Gary, how can we follow you? How can we support the work that you're doing? How can we, learn more about Gary? Thank you so much for being here.
Of course. I guess on that note of I guess trying to be helpful and giving inspiration for how to tell your personal story. Ebony, have you seen my personal website actually?
I have not.
Okay, so yeah, I invite you to check out GarySheng.com, which actually has like more of a narrative feel and more of a personal vibe. But there's like basic instructions for how to reach me. You can hit me up on LinkedIn or Twitter. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And welcome to the Liberated Success community.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to the community.
Thank you so much, Gary. So some takeaways are: internships provide space for you to potentially see yourself for your future, and a good mentor sees your potential. They give you pep talks, and they should be good energy to help you thrive. 2, the educational system teaches an idealized version of what democracy is, and what we need are people who are dedicated to preserving, strengthening, and defending democracy. And it's a full-time job, as we witness what has happened over the last couple of days. So what we really need to be doing is making an investment in young people right now. And lastly, the default way is to always talk about what kids need instead of asking them what they want. And we need to be responsive to young people's needs so that we can support them. Thank you so much, Gary, and welcome to the Liberated Success family. So I was busy this week building partnerships and for some upcoming programs, so I don't have any tangible updates to give you this week, but I still want to just continuously remind you to check out the website liberatedsuccess.org/resources, because that's where I have a repository of community resources for high school students, college students, parents, and educators. And if you're in New York City, I want you to know that the New York City community board applications are open, and you only have to be 16 years old to be on a New York City community board. This is a way to make change in your community, and it's a great way as an intro into government. So if you find our work informative, impactful, important, show us some love with a donation. The link is in my bio on IG and Twitter. It's the first comment on Facebook. And if you're listening on the podcast, you can make a donation via listener support. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to follow us on IG, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you for watching and listening all the way to the end. We will save ourselves. Now listen, folks, stay in the house. This coup does not need a counter protest. This ain't our fight. The FBI needs to handle this. So, if you're watching and you know these folks, turn their asses in. All right, folks, wear your mask, wash your hands, physically distance, and all Black Lives Matter. See you next week. Because clearly we saw blue lives, though.